Welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast, episode 36.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Don Cardenas, and we're going to have another short intro section this week because I don't have a super long interview this week, even though it is a very good interview. I have, it's the end of a very busy week that is just rolling into another very busy week, so I haven't had too much time to delve into a lot of things. I started reading a couple books and haven't really had a chance to finish them or really make much headway past the first dozen or so pages. So hopefully next week I'll be able to expound on those books. But for now, I'll just have to go ahead and remind everybody that True Cult number 2 is out now on Gumroad. Just search up TRVE KVLT on Gumroad. I reviewed the first issue of that a couple episodes ago. I got the second issue since I was a Kickstarter backer, and it's just as good as the first. It continues setting up this really weird, kooky, awesome story, and I highly recommend going and check that out. ORCS number 2 came out. I talked about issue 1 a couple episodes ago as well. Same deal. Keeping up that quality with the second issue. It's really, really good. I do have a couple of Kickstarters that I am involved with that are coming up that I'd like to mention. The first is, it's not launched yet. It will be launching very soon, but it is called Off Into the Sunset. It's being edited by Brent Harshman, who is someone I actually did a short story for last year that we haven't put out quite yet, but it was a great experience working with him and getting to know him over the past year or so on Twitter, and he put together a really killer lineup of artists to do this, bunch of different takes on westerns and things like that, and I will be writing and drawing a story exclusively myself. It'll be a 5-page story, and I'm really excited to get started on it. If you go to Kickstarter.com and search Off Into the Sunset, you can go there, you can click to be notified when it launches and give us a big, strong first day. And, the first days in Kickstarters are huge and it helps bring a lot of notice to them on the algorithms and all that. So please go do that. It's going to be a really great book. The second Kickstarter I am involved in is another collaboration between myself and Philip Charles, our previous guest, and it is in the Monster Mashup Volume 2, a public domain crossover anthology. Philip and I have a really fun short story in there about kind of a Mad Max meets King Arthur meets the Mandalorian type of spin on a tale, and it was really fun. Got to do some different things with the art and the colors in that, and that is on Kickstarter. It is live now. There are 18 days to go as of posting, and they are almost halfway. They were really successful with the first volume. I'm hoping the second one gets done, but it looks like there's gonna be a lot of fun, cool stories in here that are just taking public domain characters and stories and just kind of going nuts with it. So that's Monster Mashup Volume 2 on Kickstarter. For music, I actually have something that really fit into my theme of the week of things having to be done quickly, and that is the latest EP from the band Distant. It is called Dusk of Anguish, and it is a very brutal 21 minutes, 6-track deathcore, I believe is the name of the genre, or death metal, or black groove. I'm having trouble sometimes keeping up with some of these mashups, but it is very, very heavy. It is very, very good. It really took me by surprise. It was just one of those albums I was looking on iTunes on new release day, and the cover looked interesting. I decided to check it out and randomly picked, one of the songs and was blown away. It's very heavy. There's no clean singing. It's either the high raspy, goblin screams, or like the real low guttural, detuned-ish growls. But there's a lot of great grooves. There's a lot of great production on it, and I think that's what kind of stood out for me, is a lot of really deathy metal like that, or blackish metal like that. Like I'm used to like a lower fidelity of production, and this had a lot of a lot of work done on it, I should say, in a good way. They really worked on creating kind of like an experience while you're listening to it. There's parts in certain songs where the snare goes from just being, you know, a big poppy snare to just sound like a cannon going off for certain sections. While the music itself can be seen as kind of, you know, more simple or not ultra complicated, there's a lot of textures and layers and just a lot of twists and turns they do. The favorite track I have off of this one is called the Eternal Lament, and there's a section right in the beginning after the first verse where they just like slow it down for the second verse, and it kind of gives you that stank face first time you're listening to it, like, what is going on here? And they just, you know, they don't let up from there. It was really kind of my first reaction was like, I was not expecting that. It's not the world's most, you know, drastic shift, but it was just something that just kind of came hard and fast. And that's another reason I really dug this album. Was it's 20 minutes for 6 songs. Like, I got a chance to listen to this set like several times without having to like really sit down and focus on each individual track the first time I was listening to it, because I didn't have a chance to, you know, get a lot of time with it. No, I was able to just sit with this album a little bit. So if this style of music is gonna be running at these kind of lengths, yeah, I might have to go check out some more. But yeah, I suggest you go to bandcamp.com and look up Distant, DISTANT, and the EP is Dusk of Anguish. Now let's listen to the first track I listened to, and my favorite track, the Eternal Lament. All right, time for my guest. I have never really spoken to my guest before, you know, the past few months on Twitter. It was kind of one of those things where I've just kind of met him through Twitter mutual people, and he kind of caught my eye with the concept he was talking about, and that is the concept of Mexicans with swords. And that immediately grabbed me. So, you know, after, you know, following him for a while and all that, and kind of seeing him bring this really cool idea to life and putting in all this work into it, I just knew once he launched, you know, I was gonna have to have him on the show and wanted to talk about all that good stuff. So yeah, Jared Luján is just, I'm incredibly stoked for this. You know, I say it a lot in the interview. I'm just really excited for this book because, again, just he had an idea like in August, and it's March, and it's out there, and it's funded, and it's kicking ass, and they still got plenty of time to go to get some cool stretch goals happening, or just push things out to get this book out to as many people as possible. And, you know, I wasn't sure, since I didn't know him, if, you know, how, you know, if we had a lot to talk about, or, you know, how the chat was going to go. It's kind of the, you know, the business of doing this now, where I'm getting past the circle of friends of, I know that, you know, in general how our conversations are going to go. But I was very not pleasantly surprised. I was just happy with how well Jared and I got along, and just speaking to him was really fun. We talked about a few bands that, you know, I haven't talked about yet on here. He really went into depth about making his book and just kind of the drive to do that. And yeah, he's just a great guy, great writer. I'm really excited for this book. It is on Kickstarter right now. We give all the details in the show, but, you know, just pause right now, go to Kickstarter, look up The Twin Blades, and just fund it now. just put your money down. You're not going to be disappointed. It's going to be a great book. All right, let's get to it. Jared Luján. Okay, Jared, I'm like just really excited about your project, The Twin Blades, and I can't wait till we dig into a bit more than talk about that. But as always, before we start the show, I gotta ask: comics, coffee, metal. What are you digging right now?
I'm always digging metal. Like
Nice.
that's always the answer. You know, sometimes I'm not always digging comics, but I guess coffee too. I love coffee, but I've been really into for a long time. Actually, I guess this is sort of an old thing, but the Ghost Inside. Do you listen to the Ghost Inside?
I don't listen to them, but I'm aware of their story. They have like a really tragic but also kind of triumphant kind of story.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, their first two albums were super good. I was really big into, I believe, the most recent, the one before it. I can't remember the name of the one before it, but it was really dope. And then they had this like van accident when they were on tour, and I believe the driver died, and the drummer lost his leg, and everybody just kind of presumed that was the end of that story. But they like came back with a new album, and it's amazing. Like, and it came out like months ago. But I think that's the one metal album that I've just had like in constant rotation since it came out because it's just so good.
Yeah, I remember reading all about that story when it happened. I was like, you know, kind of like that Def Leppard story where the drummer lost an arm, and it's while you would think an arm would be worse than a leg if if you listen to that. I've heard their music, so it's like, yeah, a guy losing his leg, it's just as detrimental, if not more so, for that type of band. Just like, but no, I like all kudos to this guy. Like he like just did the work, and I would see videos of him like posting stuff when he's starting to recover and like essentially learning how to drum again and things like that. So that's really cool. I should really dig into them more, to be honest, but. Yeah, they're just one of those bands who like I'm aware of, but I haven't really made the plunge into yet.
Yeah, for their like the single for the song Aftermath, they went back to the stretch of highway. They got into that accident and they filmed the video there. And I'm a sucker for stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I lost your leg and then relearned how to drum, and
that's pretty fucking metal, man.
Yeah, dude, I can't imagine anything more metal. Like I would just quit. I'd be like, yeah, okay, I gave it a shot. You know, I tried.
The universe said no.
yeah, I got rejected. You know, but yeah, it's pretty. Their new album's fucking dope. I'm really happy for them. But yeah, they have a really crazy story. They're a really, really good album. So
cool. Now you said you love coffee. Do you have like a specific brand you love, or are you just kind of whatever's black, hot, and ready to drink?
Black, hot, ready to drink, so long as it's not from Starbucks. I can't stand Starbucks' coffee, like in any form. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's maybe my deep bred hatred of what's popular or what, but it just I can't stand Starbucks coffee. It tastes gross to me. But,
that seems to be kind of the consensus with a lot of people I talk to, including myself. Like I like Starbucks, I'll get down on like chai lattes all day, but the coffee, I can't get into it. There's something about the way they roast it or brew it, or it just seems like it's just they bring out too much of the bitterness, or like it's almost acrid tasting, like with a lot of the stuff, and that's just not my vibe.
I 100% think it's the roasting. I think it always tastes almost like it's burnt before they grind it and everything. But yeah, it's like I'll drink McDonald's coffee, man. Like I'll do whatever. Like
well, I've heard McDonald's coffee is actually not that bad. I haven't. I've tried their iced coffees, and whenever I've gotten them, it's like 90% milk and like 10% coffee or something like that. So I don't have the best frame of reference for that. But do you have like a specific brand for your standard cup in the morning, or it's just kind of whatever's on sale and looks good?
I usually buy like the Dunkin's breakfast blend.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, it's like a really like perfect. It's just tastes and like feels really perfect for where I'm at whenever I wake up. But I like have to limit myself to one cup because like I'll drink I got way too into coffee in college, and just like I'll put down a pot just hanging out, and so I have to like limit myself to a single cup in the morning. But yeah, Dunkin's breakfast blend is pretty solid. It's pretty solid note.
It's like a good like equal coffee. It's very neutral. Like you're not gonna get anyone, I think, who's gonna be like, no, this is disgusting. You know, or people were like, you know, just it's like someone's like, I got this coffee. Well, what is it? The Dunkin's breakfast. Like, yeah, I'll have a cup. It's fine. No, I get the limiting, because I'm starting to, my wife and I were starting to creep back up there to the 3 big cups a day, because you know it's like, oh, a cup of coffee. A cup is like 8 ounces, like, and the average coffee cup mug is like 12 ounces, and mine's like 15 ounces. So I'm having like I'm essentially having like 45 ounces of coffee a day, and it's like, I kind of need to dial that back a little bit, you know. But
yeah, it's just so good, like all the time. It's but I can't drink, like I don't drink iced coffee. I don't drink like mochas or anything like that. It's got to be hot, and it's got to be black, and that's the only way I drink coffee.
I think once the weather starts getting more permanently warm around here, it's gonna be a lot easier for me to kind of back off it a little bit. But then that's when my soda intake is gonna start rising, and I'll have to watch that then.
Where are you from?
I'm from Chicago. I currently reside around 40 more miles north of that. So
okay.
So yeah, Midwest.
Yeah, I was about to be like, it's already warm in Texas. Like but it's warm, like aside from that terrible storm we had to go through, it's warm like 9-10 months out of the year.
Yeah, you guys had a bit of a thing for with that storm, and you caught some brunt of it too. Thankfully, it seems like you've, you know, didn't have the worst experience with it, just a bad experience.
Yeah,
because there's some real big horror stories coming out of there.
Yeah, a guy I live an hour from, he died sitting in his recliner in his house. He froze to death. Yeah. It was a really, really bad time. You know, Texas is not equipped to handle that in terms of like basic infrastructure or like experience. Like none of us drive in situations like that. It was a pretty crazy time. I'm still very upset at the way that the Texas state handled it. And there's still like a lot of fallout and politically. Like we've had most of the people that run our power grid, I think like 5 or 6 people resigned 2 or 3 weeks after that, and which is good. Like they should resign. Like, but I think that they all lived out of state. And then there's like we're finding out all sorts of things about how much they price electricity when we were going through it, and the bills people are getting. It's just a mess. But yeah, it was a really, really ugly time, and I'm very grateful that like my wife and I we lost power and water for about 2 days. But my parents lost power and water for 5 days. Like the first day it was like negative 10 degrees, and my parents just went out without it.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a really, really hard storm to get through, and it was not a fun time. Not being able to like call anybody and see how everybody was doing was pretty nerve-wracking. But gratefully, everybody in my family made it out okay. Just a little bit of damage to homes, but nothing life-threatening, thankfully.
Well, that's good to hear. You know, it's not to bring things down too much, but yeah, I mean, it's hard not to address, you know, something fairly recently that just, you know, heavily affected you and, you know, people you know, and like you said, you know, someone not that far from you, you know, froze to death in his own house. That's just, it's just nuts. It's absolutely crazy because, you know, watching from, you know, up here where it's like, you know, we're kind of used to at least being able to, you know, expect something like that.
Right.
It's just like it makes me stop and think like, well, yeah, you like, who's going to be selling like winter preparedness stuff down there, or, you know, or things like, you know, I know the big issue was like, you know, the treating the gasoline or the oil or whatever to, you know, not to be winterized. Like that's not a thing you guys normally do. You know, that's, you know, or like these crazy videos of you see electricity like dancing through wires because just it's just not, just wasn't built for that.
Yeah, and like one of the things that we really exposed, like our lack of preparedness, was like people's pipes were bursting everywhere. You know, so our homes weren't designed to handle that kind of weather. You know, and there's no amount of like preparation you can make to deal with the fact that your house now has water coming out of the ceiling and it's freezing, dripping ice from your ceiling fan. Like it's just
no house is built for that, man. And it's like, and if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, but weren't a lot of houses in Texas like the shutoffs like in the yard, like you have to dig it out almost?
Yeah.
So like for us, it's like there's some sort of like massive thing. There's like there's a shutoff right in my basement. I just go run and shut it off from the main and take care of it from there. But it's just it was just like the just enough random effects, or hate to say the term, but like a perfect storm of things that just like exposed all the things that that Texas was not prepared for. And in most in most fairness, like you guys shouldn't have had experienced that, but that goes into the larger global warming situation.
Exactly.
Which could be a whole nother thing. So no, I'm glad that for the most part you and yours got out of it unscathed. So that that's a good thing, and you're able to launch your Kickstarter on time and all that. So but before we
sheer determination.
Sheer determination. Launch. I'm sure it was like a beacon of light for you too. On top of all the anxiety and just stress that launching a Kickstarter does, I'm sure it was like a shining point. You're like, no, I'm gonna keep my eye on this, and we're gonna do this. We're gonna get it done. And before we get into your Kickstarter, I do want to know what comics you've been digging and enjoying, because I'm looking forward to enjoying your comic, but I want to know what you're digging right now.
My boy Brian Hawkins has a comic called Black Cotton, and it's out through Scout, and he sold out. I think they sold out of the first print, and it's an amazing comic. It's about it's like an alternate universe where there's a wealthy black family, and a white police officer shoots their child, I believe. And it's really, really good. It's an amazing, and it's really poignant. And Brian's the exact right guy to bring that out. He's also like one of the nicest human beings in comics. I don't know if I don't know if Brian's gonna listen to this, but he's like this super good looking and warm hearted dude. It's really phenomenal. But I also just finished Stargazer by Anthony Cleveland, and oh my God, I feel so bad. I know Anthony because he's my buddy, but Stefano Simeone and Antonio Fuso did Stargazer through Mad Cave, and Stargazer was amazing. It was one of my favorite books coming out month to month. And I know I said Anthony's my friend. Maybe there's a little bit of bias there, but it is a very, very good comic, all things considered. But all like the story that I'm really into, that I'm not friends with anybody on the creative team, is Homesick Pilots. I love Homesick Pilots. It's like it is easily becoming one of my favorite comics of all time.
Yeah, the premise to that is really interesting to me, and I just haven't made the jump yet because I'm so far behind on everything else.
Wow.
But yeah, it definitely has my my interest, and that's well, you've read it. Do you think you could explain to the people listening what the premise of that one is?
Yeah, so I got it because it said that it was like the pitch that they were putting out there was like haunted houses as mechs, but that's not entirely accurate. It's still an amazing book, but it's about this girl who gets possessed by a haunted house, and it uses her as its avatar to go collect its ghosts, which are like haunted objects that have been removed from the house. And so she goes. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the idea, the premise, haunted house as mechs, sounds cool, but what you just said sounds like 50 times cooler.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
So now I'm even more interested in this now. So yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, go on.
No, yeah, it's really a big concept. The art is beautiful, like it's gorgeous. And then I think, man, I'm gonna, I don't know if I'm gonna speak out of turn, but the guy that wrote it, I think, is the guy that's doing Shadow Service through Vault, and it's also an amazing. Shadow Service is one of my favorite books coming out as well. It's definitely not. I'm dumb. but Shadow Service through Vault is written by Dan Waters. My bad. But it's Homesick Pilots is written by Dan Waters. Shadow Service is written by Kevin Scott, and Shadow Service through Vault. That's another one that I'm really, really digging right now. Which it's like a grimy, like almost like a Men in Black, but for supernatural things and not aliens. Okay. And it's a really fun, really dirty little grimy story, and I really like that as well.
That sounds awesome. All right, so now that you've told me about the comics that you're digging, I got to talk to you about your Kickstarter, because I remember when you were just talking about the tagline, Mexicans with Swords. And I'm like, I'm there. I don't know what this is, but whatever happens and when it comes out, I am completely there. And you know what? I usually do our Twitter questions towards the end, but this Twitter question is also my question. So, you know, I'll share credit with Gabe Gonzalez at Latinx Horror on Twitter. How does it feel to finally have your long talked about Mexican with Swords concept created into the comic that you dreamed about? And how does it feel creating two brown characters that defy their typical genre fare?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the latter part, because that's exactly how the Twin Blades wound up getting created. Was like the whole way that publishing, and not just comics, but movies and books and all of that, the way that we're commonly presented, Latine people in general are commonly presented, is immigrants or cartel, and that's pretty much the status quo, you know.
Yeah.
And whenever I was, it was right after DRYFOOT, my book with Mad Cave Studios. I was kind of like, man, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to, you know, DRYFOOT's not about either of those things. It's actually a little bit, it's kind of a sort of me making fun of that whole concept. But I really want to do stories that involve Latine people, and I want to do them in a way that is beyond that. Because I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with cartel stories or immigration stories outright. Like, I think those stories have their relevance. I think immigration stories are very important in their own right. I don't have any beef with creators that want to make those types of stories. My beef comes with publishers only wanting to put that out because that's all they view us as, you know? So I was like, I tweeted something like in August about how I don't want to do immigration stories. I want to do I want to give Mexicans swords. And like, it just took off. And you could tell, like, you can really tell that there's this whole thing culturally that people don't want that anymore. We don't want every single representation of Mexicans that as sugar skulls and cartel members and crossing the border and things like that. And so I kind of just ran with it, and I wound up like, and to answer the first part of that question now, which is like my long dreamed about, I had like a dozen story ideas before I settled on Twin Blades. And one of those is going to probably turn into its own Kickstarter next year.
Nice.
That I was kind of like divvying up and trying to figure out which one I wanted to do. And then Twin Blades ended up being the one that I was like, yeah, you know, this is the one that I think is most timely, most appropriate, that I think I can have the most fun with right now. You know, it's definitely one of the lighter ones. Twin Blades was designed to just be a fun story that people could enjoy, and sort of like, you know, the other thing that I didn't want to do is make another really heavy story where people are going to finally sit down with some representation that isn't, immigration or cartels, and then all of a sudden it's depressing,
Yeah.
And so that was the one where I was like, it's fun, it's really light, and it's really action driven, and so yeah, it was crazy though. Like it's really cool to see how it's come together, and like DRYFOOT, the people that are into Twin Blades are super into Twin Blades, and they're super passionate about it, and they really want to see it. They're really excited for it, and that's been like the best part, is seeing excitement generated from this thing. It's been a phenomenal experience, and it's nice to just in the 4 days that it's been public. We didn't tell anybody any details about it until launch day itself. So it's been pretty great.
No, that's be a great feeling to put something out there that is obviously something you're very passionate about in terms of the type of story you're trying to tell, and then just see it connect.
Yeah.
There's, I'm sure it's probably going to be equal the feeling of when you actually hold the finished book of in your hands, like just having that reaction from people, because after 4 days you guys are funded, and that's awesome. That's like super great. So it's like, where do you go from here? Obviously there's the whole stretch goals and pushing it as far as you can to get as many people to pick up the book as possible, but it's kind of like you have to feel at least some large amount of weight off your shoulders at this point. And then maybe for like a day or two, and then like in a couple of days you put the other the anxiety of making sure you keep up all the momentum you have to the end.
Yeah, we with like stretch goals, I only have one stretch goal for the Twin Blades, and it's a big one. But we're going to talk about that probably by the time this airs. People will know about it.
This podcast is going to drop roughly a week after you've been funded. So hopefully, who knows? Maybe you've already hit the stretch goal, or you're very close to it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to talk about it kind of openly. We're doing a micro anthology called La Raza de Espadas, and I got a bunch of my other Latin friends, Hernan Guarderas, Luis Alejandro Chavez, Gabriel Gonzalez, and I got them. Gabe Gonzalez actually is the one is asked the question. Yeah, he's looking for an artist, but we have artists for, I think, Emilio, I can't remember, Estefanes or something like that, and then Jenny Odio, who are doing art for the book. But it's going to be 3 6-page stories, and the only prompt I gave them was Latin swords. Just figure it out and go from there. I've seen Hernan's story, and it's really dope. But everybody else, yeah. So we're curating that. It's going to be digital first, and then if we get enough to print copies, we're going to send that out with the people that got physical copies as well.
Well, Gabe, if you're looking for an artist who likes to draw swords and wants to, further embrace his, Latinx heritage. Anyway, so that's awesome. No, that sounds like a real fun extra to have on there. Like, that's, you're not going to go the route, which is still cool, but adding like extra covers or things like that, you're like, no, here's more comics about this awesome concept of Mexicans with swords.
Yeah, I'm not, like, when it comes to Kickstarter, I'm really a physical book guy, and I don't really buy anything else. Like, I don't get prints, I don't really splurge for stickers and stuff like that. And so I was like, man, if you had to pick something, I would make it more comics. And so that's kind of where it was. Now, obviously, everybody's going to get paid for their work on the book, so we are having to bump up. It's a pretty big stretch goal, but it's going to be worth it. If we get to it, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be some of the first paid work a lot of these guys have gotten. So it's just really exciting.
No, that's awesome. And I think even as early as a few years ago, like, I think the people, the mentioning of people getting paid from a Kickstarter kind of seemed like almost taboo.
Yeah.
But now I think most fans and most people are more like, so are the people getting paid or what? Because I know that's something I look for when there's a Kickstarter from people I don't know. I don't know their deal, so I always make sure that is the creative getting paid for this, because I think that's something that, even if it's a small amount, even whatever, I think that it's an important thing, and it's an important aspect of backing these independent books on Kickstarter, because as much as we love to do this, and as much as it's from our hearts and it's our passion, it's like, yeah, having a little bit of cash exchanged for this, it goes a long way. It goes a real long way. So that's great to hear that that's something you definitely factored in, and making sure that the creatives are taken care of, because that's big. I think that's big, and it's respectful not only to them but to the medium itself, because I think most people have a horror story of their own if they've been working in comics in any capacity of not getting paid, or
oh man, I've got a dozen.
So just to keep up with the theme of switching things up, let's go to another Twitter question, and that is from Alexander Manzo at _Manzo510. He wants to know, what are some of the resources you used for Aztec history?
Right. So my family has like a really proud lineage that extends to the Aztecs. It's something that has been talked about and referenced since I was like 4 or 5 years old. It's just been something that my family is really, really proud of. So like if I had to pick, it's something that I've always been fascinated by, right? So I've kind of picked up throughout the years. A lot of my history of the myth stuff comes from academic anthropology articles and essays and theses and things that have been written about it from people that are way smarter than I am. But if I had to like pick 2 books, Matt Clayton's got a really good book called Aztec Mythology. That's pretty accurate. But there's also The Fifth Sun by Camilla Thompson. She wrote a book that what I really like about The Fifth Sun is that it also doubles as a history book for the Aztecs themselves. So you kind of get an idea of what they were doing and why they were doing in the context of their greater mythos. And that was a big influence, I think, on me as I was trying to write a world in where the Aztec gods were like a fact,
Yeah.
That was a big help in that. If you're looking to get into that, those are 2 books that would be perfect jumping off points.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I was working on my own project that was, mixing Aztec mythology and kind of the Mexican Catholic Santeria type stuff into a book, and I just, I've always been aware of Aztec culture, Mexican culture, and stuff like that. Growing up, half Mexican. I mentioned this a little before we started. Like, I grew up in the era to where, you didn't want to like bump up your Hispanic side. You wanted to fit in. You wanted to be, just like all the white people, which
right.
I am half white, so I'm not trying to say it derogatory, but so my dad really wasn't pushing his culture on us. He wasn't pushing the language, and God bless my my very white Chicago mother, who did her best to cook the accurate foods and wanted us to be proud of our heritage. But as kids, it's at being mixed, you kind of have that feeling of wanting to fit in but not fitting in with you're too you're too Mexican for the white kids, too white for the Mexican kids. So as I've gotten older and I've had kids of my own now, and it's just been something that I've been really wanting to delve into myself and appreciate and respect, and kind of make sure that's a thing in their lives, so they can choose to whether they want to delve deeper in themselves or not. So in learning up against about Aztec mythology and all this stuff, it's like it boggled my mind to why we keep getting someone else's version of Thor in Norse mythology, when it's like, guys, there's some crazy ass shit over here. Like, like you can like, it makes the Norse stuff look like whatever, man. Like that stuff's played out at this point.
Yeah.
like you gotta come check out some of this stuff because we got some crazy stuff over here, buddy.
Yeah, it blows me away that we've gotten like 1,000 versions of Zeus and not a real proper version of like Xolotl or Tezcatlipoca or Quetzalcoatl. You know, like there's these gods are they're fascinating. You know, if anybody doesn't know, like the Twin Blades, if you haven't been to our Kickstarter page, which you should go, Xolotl's myth in the creation of the fifth sun is that he doesn't take part in the ritual sacrifice to create it, and he feels so guilty he cries his eyes out literally from his head. And so he's a dog-headed god who walks around with no eyes. You know, that's the most metal, dopish shit you could come up with. And I was like, how do we not have something from that? Like, how is that not something that people want to check out? And just like the whole, it's just a real messy thing. Aztec mythology makes Greek mythology look tame.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling that we have. But you know what? Then that's fine. We'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. No,
you're lost, guys.
I'm more than happy to do that on my own and take the money from them.
Exactly. Thanks for also so we've been talking about Twin Blades. We've kind of mentioned some of the stuff around it, but why don't you hit us up with the pitch in case people who are unfamiliar with the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so the pitch is two twin siblings are responsible for these magical swords that are designed to defend the sun. And as they become estranged, darker forces begin to make their move. The Twin Blades is a story about, it's about family, it's about believing in yourself, and big-ass magical swords. That's the best possible pitch.
I don't know what else people need.
Me neither.
It's a great concept. The art looks great. And that's Julio Suarez.
Yeah.
How
Rocco
did you?
Lang.
What's that?
Rocco Lang is our colorist too. I got to give her credit.
Oh yeah. Those two, they make a really good team. Were they people you knew beforehand, or was it kind of a search, looking for the right person, or?
So when I set out to do the Twin Blades, I was really determined to do a full Latin team. I was trying. That was actually part of the reason why I chose the Twin Blades, because some of the other story ideas I had dealt with like more criminal elements, and I was like, I don't want to do a criminal story, and I'm kind of wasting the opportunity. And so I was like, I'm going to do this, and I want to find a whole Latin team to do it. And so Julio, I found on Twitter, and Julio is from Mexico City, which is actually where the Twin Blades takes place. And he was super passionate. Like Julio, what I love about Julio is that he's like a ball of energy. Like every email, every DM, he's really electric. He's really like, I'm going to do my best. Like I'm going to knock it out. And I'm like, man, like, yeah, I know, I trust you, and he's been great to work with. And then I asked him about colorists he knew, because the only colorist I could think of Latin descent was Gab Contreras, and she was busy. Yeah. So I think she was probably coloring Witchblood at the time. And he recommended Rocco to me, and I looked at, Rocco had a really limited portfolio. I kind of took a chance on Rocco because of Julio's recommendation and because the pages that I did see looked good. So I thought we would just give it a go. And then she turned out to be a monster. Like she just an animal. Her and I have a really good, we both know what we want from the pages. Like we both are on the same platform.
That's awesome.
I was like, I really want this scene this is an early morning scene, so there's going to be these neon lights in the background, and I really want them to pop, because there's never going to be, there hasn't been a sword fight scene with these weapons and this setting before, and it's going to be looking like this. And she was like, okay, got it. And she just ran with it. The pages that you see on our Kickstarter were her first try. Like she just nailed it. But yeah, they're both they're a fantastic team. They know each other. I think they've probably hung out because they're both from Mexico City.
Okay.
But yeah, they're great.
That's kind of cool when there's like already like a friendly relationship between the colorist and the artist, because colorists, this day and age, extremely important, extremely critical, and definitely deserve a ton more credit than they get. And the pages that you do see on the Kickstarter, they are awesome. And it's funny you mentioned the ball of energy that Julio is, because you see it on the page.
Yeah,
you can see he's definitely I just feel like he sits down at the table. He's like, man, I'm just gonna do everything in my power to kick some ass today, right now, and just put it all into the page. And that's you feel that energy off of it. So that's really awesome. That and also I applaud you for trying to stick with a full Latin team and like trying to keep it that representation, not only with the characters in the story but also with the creators.
Yeah, that was a big deal to me. I really try to work with, whenever I'm in control of it, I really want it to be as diverse a team as I can. I really value that aspect of it as much as in a big way. But yeah, this was the first time working with an entire Latin team, and it's a fantastic experience. Everybody's really passionate and really invested in what we're doing, because all of us know that we're not just doing a comic, we're doing a comic about our culture and about our ancestry and our history. And it's even if it's just like a fun story, it's really rooted in our cultural back identity. And it's really cool to see how passionate everybody is about the book. And it's really exciting. And that's why the pages look so great, is there's like a real fire burning. Besides everybody's talented, there's a real passion burning underneath it to make sure we do it in a good way, in a way that sticks in people's minds.
It definitely shines through on the pages and what you've shown and just how you're talking about it. Like, it's obviously that not only did it start as a passion project for you, but it's become a passion project for the people involved, and that's rare. I must say, and I'm incredibly stoked for you that all came and happened. And like you said, you kind of like tossed this idea around in August, and it's March, and you have the book. How far along is the book? Is the book done, or is it kind of you have some of the pages done and you guys are still working on it, or?
We're halfway. We're more than halfway done with inks.
Awesome.
Rocco is coloring pages right now. I'm gonna probably send her more money on Monday, as a matter of fact. And but so right now, and then Gabriella, our letterer, who is amazing as well. She's gonna start doing drafts of the lettering stuff by probably the following week. So we're pretty well underway. I think we have, like, in terms of line art, we only have like 12 or 14 more pages.
Oh, that's you guys are like almost the home stretch.
Yeah. So that was my biggest thing, is getting as much of it done as we could beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to have all the inks done by launch, but the goal was to launch in March, and I wanted to stick to that as much as I could. But I feel really good about our deadlines. I told everybody, I insisted everybody take off launch day, and so like I was probably delayed it a little bit, but everybody's been working really hard, and I was like, man, we should celebrate. We should all just like don't work today. Like, go home and hang out and watch the Kickstarter numbers roll in and freak out with me.
No, I think it's important. For them, I'm sure that was some sort of creative recharge for them to see the response that it was getting, and just also kind of like a not to make it sound corporate, but like a team building thing. Like, hey, let's all enjoy this thing being unleashed into the world in this, or at least debut to the world in this way, and just enjoy it. And then, tomorrow we'll go back to the grindstone and get it done. But and like you said though, like most of the inks are done. And so, I've been cautious about backing Kickstarters that are not completed, but
Right.
there's levels of not completion, and you guys definitely seem to be well on your way to be completed. So it's like, okay, there's like no risk here. Like I highly doubt there's, it's when you're like, oh, we had the first 3 pages done, we're launching our Kickstarter, like, and it's like 100-page book, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys will be professionals and finish it, but I'm like, am I going to forget that I backed this in 8 months, and then it comes in, and I'm like, oh, this book.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's a 44-page book, and is this, obviously I feel like you're probably setting up a huge world where you can tell a ton of stories, but are you kind of like, if this is it, I'm good, or is it like, no, this is just the start?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think like in terms of the main characters, Xiomara and Basilio, I feel like I'm done there. The thing about the Twin Blades is, in the mythology of the book, is that they've existed since forever, since the creation of the fifth sun. So there's a lot of room to kind of play with that history. I really like the idea of doing what happened to the Twin Blades under Spanish colonialism. Where did they go, and why did that, like what happened at that point in time, and what would the Aztec gods be doing around then? But in terms of like an immediate sequel or anything like that, I don't have really any plans for that. The Twin Blades is part of my greater, I have a 3 Kickstarter one-shot plan that I'm trying to get done in the next like 12 months. And that the Twin Blades is pretty much the first one of those. So if there's like if we have a big response and people really want a sequel, or to see more of the Twin Blades and see where like what happened to more of the lore of the world, then yeah, I'm always more than happy to do that. But we're gonna have to see where it ends up, because I have a lot of friends who have published books and then gotten them picked up by publishers and things like that. I'm always a little bit interested in, but so we'll see. I'm always intrigued by the idea, at least.
No, I respect that a lot, because it's I think too often a lot of creators can bite off more than they can chew with the stories they want to tell, being someone who's done that himself. So I'm speaking from experience, I'm not just talking trash. It's definitely good to hear that you're like, no, this, you designed this to be a story that when it's done, it can be done, but you can also go back to it if you want to. There's so much in the mythos of the story you're creating that you're like, well, yeah, we can go on if people want, but in the end, you're going to have a self-contained, satisfying one shot, which I like those types of stories. I think stories are better when there's an end planned, so that way you can really work on payoffs and things like that. So yeah, I totally respect that, and I do hope it's successful enough to where it's undeniable for you to have to go back and do more. But that's just because I love the concept so much that despite not reading the finished book yet, I just know I'm gonna want more of it. So
yeah, I think that part of the deterrent is Kickstarter, right? I hate the idea of running a mini series on Kickstarter. I have friends that have done it successfully. I have friends that are in the process of doing it, and I respect that a ton. My biggest concern, as someone who really likes telling stories, as someone who really likes writing comics, is not being able to finish what I start. I don't want to start a Twin Blades world building thing that's going to be 5 or 6 issues, and by issue 4 I can't get the funding because people are tired of listening to me. Maybe they're not sick of the book, but they're probably sick of me. Or, even worse, I've had to run 4 or 5 Kickstarters over 2 or 3 years. and maybe people just lose interest because of the amount of gaps between those issues. So my plan was to just do the 44-page one-shot, fund as much of it as I reasonably can out of pocket, and then go to Kickstarter for printing fees and some extra change for any accidentals, which is what we did. And I thought that was the better plan for me personally, is to have the faith and confidence that I can tell the story that I want to tell, and then I can get out and move on.
No, yeah, I know, I have friends as well who've done the same model of, doing miniseries, and I can't imagine the stress it goes on. Yeah. They've been successful with it, and the thought of doing my own is intriguing, but also terrifying. So I totally get where you're coming from. And, I like your idea, 3 one-shots, it's also, building your audience and showing these different kinds of stories that you as a creator can do. Yeah. And, it just kind of paints a broader picture of what Jared can offer, potential companies and stuff like that who may want to scoop you up and get you under their banner. So I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, I think it's my friend Jeff Ryder, who just finished Major Homes on Kickstarter, he funded 4 issues on there, and that's dope, mm-hmm. But like indie comics economics just freaks me out, it's terrifying, like people cut off their pull lists on a monthly comic, if you lose their interest, if you keep their interest in one, but maybe you have a kind of a slower number 2, they're not going to come back for number 3. That's terrifying to me. You're trying to build a whole new audience constantly. And I was like, no, let's just, especially on Kickstarter. And I was like, let's just leave it at the one shot. And then hopefully we can get a publisher afterwards that wants to publish it as a one shot. We can just kick it out to the world. Now, if a publisher wants to pay me a page rate and pay the art team, I'll do as much Twin Blades as anybody wants.
That's kind of the secret behind indie creators, right? It's like, here's this thing, it's done. Someone wants to pay me, I can definitely keep this going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got like I said, man.
If you take away the stress of actually you're trying to earn money, trying to produce this, or at least making sure my creative team is paid, like I'm sure I could write the hell out of 50 issues of this.
Oh yeah. I like I said, like Siomono and Basilio, I have ideas, but I don't have anything like concrete. But like we could do a history of the Twin Blades through awesome. Every major conflict in Mexico's history, and we could have a good time doing that, But as for right now, I'm like, no, let's get what we got in front of us done, and then we can come back if we want to.
No, and again, I say this a lot, but I get it and I respect it. It's like, I'm looking forward to this book. It sounds really awesome, and I like your idea of like, if you're going to go back to it, telling the history, because there's, your concept has like kind of opened up all these possibilities for history and how these, weapons and these blades have, were what they could have done in history and where they would fall and what that would mean for certain events and things like that. So that's awesome. Let's go to our last Twitter question, and that is from John Westoff at Anti-Drummer on Twitter. He wants to know, what is your favorite part of comic creation?
Getting back colors. I think I love seeing character designs and inks and pencils and inks. I love all of that, but for some reason, like, seeing colors really shows me what the what the reader is going to see. I feel like when I see inks and pencils, I'm still seeing behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. It's like you're seeing what's the expression for a play? Plays have like a soft opening where you can go and see them and If they suck, it's okay because it's the last rehearsal and things like that. Essentially, that's kind of how I feel when I see pencils and inks. Is that we're still behind the curtain. I'm still the soft audience for what we're gonna do. When I see colors, I'm like, okay, so that's where we're at. This is the final thing that the reader is going to see. And so when I finally see that come together and see how the line art and the color art matches up together, that to me is where I'm like, oh, this is real. This is really the road we're going to take. And that just gets my blood going. I'm like, let's go. Like, I'm ready to put this out right now. The last page that we put on the Kickstarter, Rocco had uploaded that the night before launch. And I was like, nope, that's got to go. Like, we got to put that on there.
Yeah, it's definitely like, with the exception of letters being the final, like, oh wow, this thing's done. It's just like, it's like, oh man, this is really happening. This is really getting, because I have to say that is one of my favorite parts is whenever, not when I'm coloring myself, just because I'm just like, I want to be done with it. But when someone else's colors come in over my stuff, it's like, oh wow, this is a thing. This actually exists now. Awesome. So yeah, that's cool. So when you're writing, or when you were writing Twin Blades, were you working kind of with Julio in terms of like a Marvel style script, or plot, and breaking down, or was it kind of like you handed him a full script and he did what he does with it?
So my general approach to artists and my scripts is that I write a full script and I say something along the lines of like, hey, if you think something doesn't work, or if something could work better, just let me know and we can talk about it. Like, I'm really only concerned that we're keeping the narrative function going, as the writer. Like if there's something that's important that happens later on in the story and they see it for the first time on this page and we want to change the way the layout is, that's fine. If we want to change the way that the camera is so we don't see it, that's a problem because it doesn't go into effect later on, right? So Julio was I had the Twin Blades written all together, and then after art I do a lettering pass, but he took it and he did make. I told him the same thing. I was like, if you have problems, if you have something that doesn't work, just let me know and we'll see what we can figure out. And we did that for a few pages. He said that, well, if we add this panel here and we laid it out like this, it would look better. And I was like, dope, do it. I trust that you as an artist probably knows that better than me. And we just kind of went from there. So the idea of a Marvel style script scares me. Like, it almost makes me feel useless, to tell you the truth. Because it's like, oh yeah, this is the general plot. Figure it out.
Well, I've collaborated with Philip Butehorn on a few things, and he was a previous guest. And do you know Phil?
Yeah, I know Phil. So
something else we're working on. I actually told him like, hey, how would you feel about doing like Marvel style on this? So that's actually something we're going to see how that kind of relationship works with us, because he usually gives me a full script. But Phil, like you, and like fortunately every other writer I've worked with, and from what it sounds like, a lot of writers is thankfully it's like, yeah, here's the script, but you're the artist. You think of a better way, you think of a different way. Let's I'm not going to be precious unless it's like, oh no, wait, we need to make sure this is seen or this is portrayed in this way to reference something later. So
right.
So that's, I think, yeah, it's always nice to hear, that kind of back and forth being, open and allowed and, fostered.
Yeah, I think you have to be real arrogant to tell an artist like that they're outright wrong. Like at the bare minimum, conversations should be had. But like I said, man, like at the end of the day, my main concern as the writer is, does the plot make sense, and does the way that we present it in art make it consistent and make it make sense? Because if the reader gets confused, if it takes them out of it, then that's a problem. But like 9 times out of 10, I just don't even. I'm like, yeah, sure. I have like I have this really good story about the DRYFOOT cover. DRYFOOT #3 has this really beautiful cover that I was originally against, and I was like, no, I don't think that works. I think it's a bad cover idea because it's a little bit more dreamy than, like, it's a little bit more surreal than our other 2 covers, and I think it's going to take people out. And Orlando, who is an amazing artist and was the artist on DRYFOOT, he goes, well, you know what? I'll just draw it up. I'll draw up my idea and your idea, and we'll see which one is better. And his idea was so much better. Like, the second I saw it, I was like, oh, I'm a fool. And I already, prescribe to the idea that, like, I should let Orlando do what he really insists on doing. But it was just like, I just couldn't get out of it. And then we ended up using his cover. His cover for that issue ended up becoming the cover for the trade because it was all of our favorite cover. So yeah, even if I wasn't a convert of that belief, then I certainly was after. Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, I wasn't able to read DRYFOOT before we talked, though I definitely have, my interest is definitely peaked on it when I was looking through it and images and stuff like that. And that cover you're talking about, it did catch my eye. So I'm gonna throw my my vote to. Yeah, he was right.
Yeah, Orlando was right. Yeah. I think that's been the general consensus. Every time I tell that story, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, he was right," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
So you mentioned DRYFOOT's trade. Is that something that's been released already, or is in the works?
The DRYFOOT trade came out last month.
Last month, okay.
It was released on the 23rd, I think. But yeah, it's been out for about a month.
And could you tell us a little bit about what DRYFOOT is?
Yeah, DRYFOOT is a story of these 4 friends in 1984, Miami's Little Havana. They have these big dreams of not like so. Well, let me back up a little bit. If you're not familiar with 1984 Havana, it was really violent. There was a lot of drugs. There's a lot of gang wars, and this group of 4 teenage friends, they want to escape that. They want to live a different kind of life. And so together they kind of hatch a plan to rob a local drug lord of a bunch of cash, and so they can fund their trip out west. And it's a really heavy story. I'm really super proud of that book. I love that book. I love all the art in it. It was received pretty well. Unfortunately, it did come out. I mean, so pre-orders were due like July of last year for the first issue, and so it was a real messy time to release a comic. But it's a good book, and it's really fun, and I'm really proud of it.
Awesome. Yeah, it definitely sounds like a fun book, and again, just looking through some of the art that was online when I was doing some research, it looks nice in 1984, and then it really captures that vibe.
Yeah, Orlando and Nia, the artist and the colorist on that book, are another fantastic team. I'm really grateful that we got both of them together. Nia is a monster, just like Rocco. She's a coloring wizard, but that book was a lot about me kind of toying with the idea of how Latin people are represented and how they really are, and so we got to have this old group of gangsters and drug lords, and then this teenagers who like video games and movies and baseball, and but it was really cool. It was a really good experience. That was probably one of the best creative experiences of my entire life, is working on that book. And I miss working on it a lot. I miss working with Orlando a lot, and our editor Chris Fernandez, who is also a fantastic dude. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. It's kind of staggering how like a good creative experience can just kind of embolden you and this like reinvigorate you and reassure you that you're doing something right and you're kind of making the right moves and things like that. So I'm glad you've had that experience, because I'm sure that kind of fed into doing the Twin Blades. and it seems like kind of like a repeat experience where you're just having
Yeah.
such a great relationship with the creators, and everyone just seems to be just on board for that, and that's huge. That's at risk of sounding like redundant or whatever. It's just it is so important when you're making something that everyone else is, if not equally passionate, at least somewhat passionate about it with you, and it that just shows up on the page. It shows up on the just overall energy of the project, and it seems like you've been able to have that and foster that with all your projects, and that's really awesome.
Yeah, I think DRYFOOT taught me. DRYFOOT was my first major published work, and I learned a lot from DRYFOOT. But probably one of the greatest things I learned in there was that the way that I was acting with my artists and my colorists and my letterers out before then is exactly what was expected of me in that professional setting. And that was a really validating experience. Is that okay? Like kind of, because my whole approach to comics is that it's collaborative. You have a group of people coming together to do a one story, and that's kind of the energy I was bringing to these short comics I was doing before DRYFOOT. And so whenever I got there, and that was kind of the same approach that everyone had and everybody kind of expected, I was like, awesome, like this is the best. And it was a really nice validating experience. And creating, that's how I want to work on every book. I want every project I do to be a similar experience to that, where all of us are working hard, all of us are doing our best to meet our deadlines because we all know the other one is depending on us. And it's a collaborative thing. We're all talking, we're all having a healthy communication about where our story is going, what direction our story's in, things like that.
Yeah, that's the best though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's rules.
Yeah, it's something that having held other jobs in my life, there's nothing else like that. When everyone's just doing what they got to do, excited about what they're doing, and feeding off of each other. It just you don't get that feeling from few other things, I imagine. So that's awesome. That's been your experience, and I'm sure it has no small part to do with your attitude towards things and how you treat people.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I definitely hope so. I really think that if one of the worst advice I ever got in comics was nobody's going to be as passionate about their book as you are.
Mm-hmm.
About you, the writer, not you, the creator, or you, the co-creator. And I just think that's bullshit. Like, I think artists. There's obviously artists who are going to treat any book like it's work for hire, but only if you really treat them like it's work for hire. If you treat artists like machines that hold a pencil and a pen, then yeah, people are going to be kind of shitty towards you, and they're going to just do the bare minimum. But when you really treat people like they're collaborators and they have as they should be,
Mm-hmm.
You get people are passionate about everything. Julio's been passionate about our book. Orlando and I were very passionate about our book. That's where I think the gears start to fall off, and is whenever you treat someone like they're not a person as much as they are just an art machine. Draw this and shut up.
Well, yeah, it's speaking from the artist's perspective, while a page rate goes a long way,
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. It really doesn't take much. It just, like you said, just giving the respect and treating them like a collaborator. That goes so far, I think. And, I'm glad to know people and have worked with people who embody that spirit, where it's just like, we just want to make rad stuff, let's all make rad stuff.
Yeah.
If you have an idea how to make it better, let's do that, and let's just do what we are blessed and cursed with wanting to do with our creative lives.
Yeah, and if you don't want to collaborate with an artist, then write a fucking novel.
Yeah.
Like no one's gonna make you write a comic.
No.
You know, like so. It blows me away whenever I hear horror stories like that about writers, because I'm, just then don't involve them. If you really think you're the only person that can capture your vision, then be the only person capturing your vision, and either learn to draw and do it yourself, or just do a novel.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Jared, it's been a blast talking to you. I am so excited for the success you've had so far, and with the continued success of the Twin Blades being funded, and hopefully by the time this drops, we're well past that already funded goal, and you're got stars in your eyes, and everyone's just frothing at the mouths to get this book in their hands. Can you let everybody know where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jared Luján, JARREDLUJAN. At Jared Luján, you can find me. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as both of those. If you want sneak peeks, exclusive looks, like updates on what I'm doing, and keeping track, because I'm in a lot of things this year, a lot of anthologies and stuff. You can go to my website, Luján Writes, LUJANWRITES.com, and sign up for my newsletter, and you can get notified of all that stuff. Their newsletter subscribers are also going to get some cool stuff with if they also back Twin Blades. They're going to get some exclusive cool stuff with their stuff.
Awesome. And Twin Blades Kickstarter ends on April 15th, so still have plenty of time after this drops to go dump some money in there and just get ready to be transported into a world of awesomeness. Jared, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Comics Coffee Metal podcast. If you'd like to support the show, please consider subscribing via your favorite podcast player, sharing links to the episodes via social media when they post, or consider going to ko-fi.com/comicscoffeemetal. That's coffee.com/comicscoffeemetal.